let's continue with section 4. Is that test 2?
Section Section 4. You will hear a lecture about the history of weather forecasting. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
Alright, so last time we did that already. Now we just listen one by one.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Bình Hương, you can go first.
In this series of lectures,
In this series of lectures
about the history of weather forecasting,
about the history of weather forecasting,
I'll start by examining its early history.
I start by examining its early history.
That'll be the subject of today's talk.
That'll be the subject of today's talk.
Okay, so we'll start by going back thousands of years.
Okay, so we'll start by going back thousands of years. Alright, Tô Yên.
Most ancient cultures had weather gods.
Most ancient cultures had weather gods.
And weather catastrophes.
And weather catastrophes. Catastrophe, do you know catastrophe? A kind of disaster. Weather catastrophes.
Such as floods.
Such as floods.
Played an important role in many creation myths.
Played an important role in many creation myths.
Generally, weather was attributed
generally weather was attributed to
the whims of the gods.
To the whims of the gods.
As the wide range of weather gods in various cultures shows.
Ngọc Anh.
For instance, there's the Egyptian sun god Ra.
For instance, there's the Egyptian sun god Ra.
And Thor.
If you watch The Adventures, you should know this guy.
The Norse god of thunder and lightning.
The Norse god of thunder and lightning. Còn phải luyện nhiều phần listening nha, listening còn yếu lắm.
Many ancient civilizations developed rites.
Many ancient civilizations developed rites.
Such as dances. In order to make the weather gods look kindly on them.
In order to make the weather gods look kindly on them. So here we have the answer for number 31. What's that? dancers. So you can write you can write dancers on number 31. Dancers. Okay. So many cultures invented dances and other ceremonies to make the weather gods friendly. So that's what it said. All right, next one. Thiên Nga.
But the weather was of daily importance.
But the weather was of daily importance.
Observing the skies and drawing the correct conclusions
Observing the skies and drawing the correct conclusions
from these observations was really important.
From these observations was really important.
In fact, their survival
in fact, their survival
depended on it.
Depended on it. So here we have the answer for number 32. That is survival. Okay? You can write survival. Yeah. For number 32. So people needed to observe and interpret the sky to ensure their survival. And let's move on to number 33. All right. Thư.
It isn't known when people first started to
It isn't known when people first started to
observe the skies, but at around 650 BC,
but at around 650 BC,
the Babylonians produced the first short-range
listen again.
Observing the skies and drawing the correct conclusions from these observations was really important. In fact, their survival depended on it. It isn't known when people first started to observe the skies, but at around 650 BC, the Babylonians produced the first short-range weather forecasts.
Short-range weather forecasts.
Based on their observations of clouds.
Yeah, based on their observations of clouds.
And other phenomena.
So here we have the answer for number 33. What is that? Clouds with S, okay? Clouds. Around 650 BC, Babylonians started forecasting using weather phenomena such as clouds. All right, next one, number 34. Hương.
The Chinese also recognized weather patterns.
The Chinese also recognized weather patterns.
And by 300 BC, astronomers had developed a calendar which divided the year into 24 festivals. each associated with a different weather phenomenon.
Each associated with a different weather phenomenon. So here we have the answer for number 34. What is that, guys? Festivals with S. Okay, so by 300 BC, the Chinese had a calendar made up of a number of festivals connected with the weather. Okay, Huy.
The ancient Greeks were the first to develop
The ancient Greeks were the first to develop what?
a more scientific approach to explaining the weather.
A more scientific approach to explaining the weather.
The work of the philosopher and
The work of the philosopher
scientist Aristotle
and scientist Aristotle
in the 4th century BC
in the 4th century BC
is especially noteworthy as his ideas held sway for nearly 2,000 years.
as his ideas held sway for nearly 2,000 years.
In 340 BC,
In 340 BC,
he wrote a book in which he attempted to account for the formation of rain, clouds, wind and storms.
Wind and storms. Okay, Quỳnh Hương.
He also described celestial phenomena
Yeah, okay. Again.
2,000 years. In 340 BC, he wrote a book in which he attempted to account for the formation of rain, clouds, wind and storms. He also described celestial phenomena such as halos.
Yes, he also described celestial phenomena such as halos.
That is, bright circles of light around the sun,
That is bright circles of light around the sun.
moon and bright stars,
The moon and bright stars
and comets.
and comets. So here we have the answer for number 35. Yeah. So that is comets, right? So Aristotle also described halos and comets. All right, next one.
Many of his observations were surprisingly accurate.
Many of his observations were surprisingly accurate.
For example, he believed that heat heat could cause water to evaporate.
For example, he believed that heat could cause water to evaporate. Làm cho nhiệt độ làm nước bốc hơi đó.
But he also jumped to quite a few wrong conclusions.
But he also jumped to quite a few wrong conclusions.
Such as that winds are breathed out by the earth.
Yes, such as that winds are breathed out by the earth.
Errors like this were rectified from the Renaissance onwards.
This one a little bit hard, yeah.
Jumped to quite a few wrong conclusions, such as that winds are breathed out by the earth. Errors like this were rectified.
Errors like this were rectified
from the Renaissance onwards.
From the Renaissance onwards. Do you know Renaissance? Thời kỳ phục hưng. Renaissance onwards. All right. Ngọc Anh, go on.
For nearly 2,000 years.
For nearly 2,000 years.
Aristotle's work was accepted.
Aristotle's work was accepted
as the chief authority on weather theory.
As the chief authority on weather theory.
Alongside this, though, in the Middle Ages, weather observations were passed on.
Weather observations were passed on
in the form of proverbs.
In the form of proverbs.
Such as red sky at night.
Such as red sky at night.
Shepherd's delight.
Shepherd's delight.
Red sky in the morning.
Red sky in the morning.
Shepherd's warning.
Shepherd's warning. Thiên Nga.
Many of these are based on very good observations.
Many of these are based on very good observations.
And are accurate. As contemporary meteorologists have discovered.
Again.
Such as red sky at night, shepherd's delight, red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. Many of these are based on very good observations and are accurate, as contemporary meteorologists have discovered.
Okay. So we have the answer for number 36. What's that? Sky. Okay. Many proverbs, for example, about the significance of the color of the sky pass on accurate information. All right, 37. thư.
For centuries, any attempt to forecast the weather
For centuries, any attempt to forecast the weather
could only be based on personal observations.
could only be based on personal observations.
But in the 15th century,
But in the 15th century,
scientists began to see the need for instruments.
scientists began to see the need for instruments. So here we have the answer for number 37. What is that? Instruments. Okay. The 15th century, scientists recognized value of instruments for the first time. All right.
Until then, the only ones available were weather vanes to determine the wind direction and early versions of rain gauges.
Early versions of rain gauges.
One of the first invented in the 15th century was a hygrometer, which measured humidity.
Toàn là từ khó nha, chúc mừng các bạn đọc và hỏi đàng hoàng nha. Huy.
This was one of many inventions.
This was one of many inventions
that contributed to the development of weather forecasting.
That contributed to what? That contributed to the development of weather forecasting.
In 1592,
in 1592,
the Italian scientist and inventor Galileo developed the world's first thermometer.
So here we have the answer for number 38. Thermometer. Okay, listen again a little.
Which measured humidity. This was one of many inventions that contributed to the development of weather forecasting. In 1592, the Italian scientist and inventor Galileo developed the world's first thermometer. His student Torricelli later invented the barometer. Which allowed people to measure atmospheric pressure.
Listen again.
And early versions of rain gauges. One of the first, invented in the Ohio, developed the world's first thermometer. His student Torricelli later invented the barometer, which allowed people to measure atmospheric pressure.
Okay, atmospheric pressure. Quỳnh Hương.
In 1648,
Yeah, in 1648.
the French philosopher Pascal
The French philosopher Pascal
proved that pressure decreases with altitude.
proved that pressure decreases with altitude.
This discovery was verified by English astronomer Halley.
This discovery was verified by English astronomer Halley
In 1686.
in 1686.
And Halley was also the first person
And Halley was also the first person
to map trade winds.
to map trade winds. This part is really hard, okay? So you need to ask a lot of questions later on. TOEIC.
This increasing ability to measure factors
This increasing ability to measure factors
related to weather helped scientists
related to weather help scientists
to understand the atmosphere
to understand the atmosphere
and its processes better.
and its processes better.
And they started collecting weather observation
And they started collecting weather observation
data systematically.
data systematically. Ngọc Anh.
In the 18th century,
Yeah, in the 18th century,
the scientist and politician
the scientist and politician
Benjamin Franklin carried out work on
Benjamin Franklin carried out work on
electricity and lightning in particular.
electricity and lightning in particular.
But he was also very interested in weather.
But he was also very interested in weather
And studied it throughout most of his life.
and studied it throughout most of his life.
It was Franklin who discovered that storms
It was Franklin who discovered that storms
generally travel from west to east.
generally travel from west to east. So here we have the answer for number 39, and that is storms. Thiên Nga.
In addition to new meteorological instruments,
In addition to new meteorological instruments,
other developments contributed to our understanding
our developments contributed to our understanding
of the atmosphere. People
of the atmosphere. People, what?
in different locations began to keep records.
People in different locations began to keep records. Records is the same.
And in the mid-19th century,
Yeah, and in the mid-19th century,
the invention of the telegraph
the invention of the telegraph
made it possible for these records
made it possible for these records
to be collated.
So here we have the answer for number 40. No, that is telegraph. All right. The 19th century, data from different locations could be sent to the same place by telegraph. All right, Thư.
This led, by the end of the 19th century, to the first weather services. It was not until the early 20th century that mathematics and physics became part of meteorology. And we'll continue from that point next week.
Okay, so we have just completed listening to this part. I'm sure you must have a lot of questions. Now guys, please open the script. And if you don't understand anything, please ask. Let me have a look at the script. Which page is that, guys? Yeah, just open that, and then if you have any questions, just ask. I will answer everything. Make sure you understand all. Sau khi các bạn nghe thực tế, các bạn sẽ thấy nó, cái công lực nó như thế nào ha. You know what you need to improve. Yeah, this is kind of academic level, so of course it's much harder than just some kind of usual conversations. If you just make some normal conversations, it's very easy, but this is academic, so it's really hard. Now ask. Just take 5 to 10 minutes, read through everything and then ask later.